Episode number 8. He did not feel at all like going to bed, so he decided to stay up, and this would also give him the chance to find out when Miss Buestner would arrive home. Perhaps it would also still be possible, even if a little inappropriate, to have a few words with her. As he lay there by the window, pressing his hands to his tired eyes, he even thought for a moment that he might punish Mrs. Gaubach by persuading Miss Buestner to give in her notice at the same time as he would. But he immediately realized that that would be shockingly excessive, and there would even be the suspicion that he was moving house, because of the incidents of that morning. Nothing would have been more nonsensical and, above all, more pointless and contemptible. When he had become tired of looking out onto the empty street, he slightly opened the door to the living room so that he could see anyone who entered the flat, from where he was, and lay down on the couch. He lay there, quietly smoking a cigar, until about 11 o'clock. He wasn't able to hold out longer than that, and went a little way into the hallway as if in that way he could make Miss Buestner arrive sooner. He had no particular desire for her, he could not even remember what she looked like, but now he wanted to speak to her, and it irritated him that her late arrival home meant this day would be full of unease and disorder right to its very end. It was also her fault that he had not had dinner that evening, and that he had been unable to visit Elsa as he had intended. He could still make up for both of those things, though, if he went to the wine bar, where Elsa worked. He wanted to do so even later, after the discussion with Miss Buestner. It was already gone 11:30 when someone could be heard in the stairway. Kay, who had been lost in his thoughts in the hallway, walking up and down loudly as if it were his own home, fled behind his door. Miss Buestner had arrived. Shivering, she pulled a silk shawl over her slender shoulders as she locked the door. The next moment she would certainly go into her room, where Kay ought not to intrude in the middle of the night. That meant he would have to speak to her now, but, unfortunately, he had not put the electric light on in his room so that when he stepped out of the dark it would give the impression of being an attack, and would certainly, at the very least, have been quite alarming. There was no time to lose, and in his helplessness he whispered through the crack of the door, "Miss Buestner." It sounded like he was pleading with her, not calling to her. "Is there someone there?" asked Miss Buestner, looking round with her eyes wide open. "It's me," said Kay and came out. "Oh, Mr. Kay," said Miss Buestner with a smile. "Good evening," and offered him her hand. "I wanted to have a word with you, if you would allow me." "Now?" asked Miss Buestner. "Does it have to now? It is a little odd, isn't it? I've been waiting for you since 9 o'clock. Well, I was at the theater, I didn't know anything about you waiting for me. The reason I needed to speak to you only came up today. I see. Well, I don't see why not, I suppose, apart from being so tired I could drop. Come into my room for a few minutes then. We certainly can't talk out here, we'd wake everyone up, and I think that would be more unpleasant for us than for them. Wait here till I've put the light on in my room, and then turn the light down out here." Kay did as he was told, and then even waited until Miss Buestner came out of her room, and quietly invited him, once more, to come in. "Sit down," she said, indicating the ottoman, while she herself remained standing by the bedpost, despite the tiredness she had spoken of. She did not even take off her hat, which was small, but decorated with an abundance of flowers. "What is it you wanted, then? I'm really quite curious." She gently crossed her legs. "I expect you'll say," Kay began, "that the matter really isn't all that urgent, and we don't need to talk about it right now, but—" "I never listen to introductions," said Miss Buestner. "That makes my job so much easier," said Kay. "This morning, to some extent through my fault, your room was made a little untidy. This happened because of people I did not know, and against my will, but, as I said, because of my fault. I wanted to apologize for it." "My room?" asked Miss Buestner, and instead of looking round the room scrutinized Kay. "It is true," said Kay, and now, for the first time, they looked each other in the eyes. "There's no point in saying exactly how this came about." But that's the interesting thing about it, said Miss Boostner. No, said Kay. Well then, said Miss Boostner, I don't want to force my way into secrets. If you insist that it's of no interest, I won't insist. I'm quite happy to forgive you for it, as you ask, especially as I can't see anything at all that's been left untied. With her hand laid flat on her lower hip, she made a tour around the room. At the mat, where the photographs were, she stopped. Look at this, she cried. My photographs really have been put in the wrong places. Oh, that's horrible. Someone really has been in my room without permission. Kay nodded, and quietly cursed Kamina, who worked at his bank, and who was always active doing things that had neither use nor purpose. It is odd, said Miss Boostner, that I'm forced to forbid you to do something that you ought to have forbidden yourself to do, namely to come into my room when I'm not here. But I did explain to you, said Kay, and went over to join her by the photographs, that it wasn't me who interfered with your photographs. But as you don't believe me, I'll have to admit that the investigating committee brought along 3 bank employees with them. One of them must have touched your photographs, and as soon as I get the chance I'll ask to have him dismissed from the bank. Yes, there was an investigating committee here, added Kay, as the young lady was looking at him inquiringly. Because of you? She asked. Yes, answered Kay. No. The lady cried with a laugh. Yes, they were, said Kay. You believe that I'm innocent then, do you? Well now, innocent, said the lady. I don't want to start making pronouncements that might have serious consequences. I don't really know you after all. It means they're dealing with a serious criminal if they send an investigating committee straight out to get him. But you're not in custody now. At least I take it you've not escaped from prison, considering that you seem quite calm, so you can't have committed a crime of that sort. Yes, said Kay, but it might be that the investigating committee could see that I'm innocent, or not so guilty as had been supposed. Yes, that's certainly a possibility, said Miss Boostner, who seemed very interested. Listen, said Kay, you don't have much experience in legal matters. No, that's true, I don't, said Miss Boostner, and I've often regretted it, as I'd like to know everything, and I'm very interested in legal matters. There's something peculiarly attractive about the law, isn't there? But I'll certainly be perfecting my knowledge in this area, as next month I start work in a legal office. That's very good, said Kay. That means you'll be able to give me some help with my trial. That could well be, said Miss Boostner. Why not? I like to make use of what I know. I mean it quite seriously, said Kay, or at least, half seriously, as you do. This affair is too pet to call in a lawyer, but I could make good use of someone who could give me advice. Yes, but if I'm to give you advice I'll have to know what it's all about, said Miss Boostner. That's exactly the problem, said Kay. I don't know that myself. So you have been making fun of me, then, said Miss Boostner, exceedingly disappointed. You really ought not to try something like that on at this time of night. And she stepped away from the photographs, where they had stood so long together. Miss Boostner, no, said Kay. I'm not making fun of you. Please believe me. I've already told you everything I know. More than I know, in fact, as it actually wasn't even an investigating committee. That's just what I called them, because I don't know what else to call them. There was no cross-questioning at all, I was merely arrested, but by a committee. Miss Boostner sat on the ottoman, and laughed again. What was it like then? She asked. It was terrible, said Kay, although his mind was no longer on the subject. He had become totally absorbed by Miss Boostner's gaze, who was supporting her chin on one hand, the elbow rested on the cushion of the ottoman and slowly stroking her hip with the other. That's too vague, said Miss Boostner. What's too vague? Asked Kay. Then he remembered himself and asked, would you like me to show you what it was like? He wanted to move in some way, but did not want to leave. I'm already tired, said Miss Boostner. You arrived back so late, said Kay. Now you've started telling me off. Well, I suppose I deserve it, as I shouldn't have let you in here in the first place, and it turns out there wasn't even a point. Oh, there was a point. You'll see now how important a point it was, said Kay. May I move this table away from your bedside and put it here? What do you think you're doing? Said Miss Bustner. Of course you can't. In that case I can't show you, said Kay, quite upset, as if Miss Bustner had committed some incomprehensible offense against him. Alright then, if you need it to show what you mean, just take the bedside table then, said Miss Bustner, and after a short pause added in a weak voice, I'm so tired I'm allowing more than I ought to. Kay put the little table in the middle of the room, and sat down behind it. You have to get a proper idea of where the people were situated. It is very interesting. I'm the supervisor. Sitting over there on the chest are 2 policemen. Standing next to the photographs there are 3 young people. Hanging on the handle of the window is a white blouse. I just mentioned that by the way. And now it begins. Ah yes, I'm forgetting myself, the most important person of all, so I'm standing here in front of the table. The supervisor is sitting extremely comfortably with his legs crossed, and his arm hanging over the backrest here like some layabout. And now it really does begin. The supervisor calls out as if he had to wake me up. In fact, he shouts at me. I'm afraid, if I'm to make it clear to you, I'll have to shout as well, and it's nothing more than my name that he shouts out. Miss Bustner, laughing as she listened to him, laid her forefinger on her mouth so that Kay would not shout, but it was too late. Kay was too engrossed in his role, and slowly called out, Joseph Kay. It was not as loud as he had threatened, but nonetheless, once he had suddenly called it out, the cry seemed gradually to spread itself all around the room.